Previously on the Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
I don't have access to a lot of the materials to bring some of my ideas to reality. I'd like to paint, so something as simple as painting. I don't have access to paints. I don't have access to canvases or brushes or anything like that. The compulsion to create it is irresistible in me. Like I can't fight it. It has to come out. And so if it can't come out in what I would say the conventional ways, the ways that I would like, it's still going to come out in some kind of way. And so yes, it does. It does challenge me to be creative in how I am creative.
It's nefarious, man. Like the brain works in fucked up ways.
The mind is one of the most deceiving, manipulative pieces of equipment, flesh, human bodies on earth. I never have trusted my brain.
All of that weight lives in your head, and you are the decision maker.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Hi, it's Ronsley. If this is your first volume, welcome. This is a weekly series where I go inside the mind of an entrepreneur, artist, athlete, academic to decipher what is the psychology of our decisions. I'm Australian and I'd like to acknowledge our traditional custodians of country where I live and work. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge our continuous connection and contribution to land, sea, and community. Okay, so I've been talking a lot about Clubhouse because it has been consuming a lot of my conversations, and we have a Psychology of Entrepreneurship club where actually I have a whole bunch of conversations, including one I had last week called Solving the World's Most Meaningful Problems. And we had Naveen Jain and Darren O'Lean on that panel, who were past guests on this show, amongst other amazing entrepreneurs who were on that panel. It was just a fantastic time. And I would love to hear your voice and catch you on Clubhouse. So come follow me at Ronsley and find the club on Clubhouse called The Psychology of Entrepreneurship. Come sit around the campfire and have a conversation with me and my friends. It would be great to have you in there. So today we are talking with Simon Cheng. Simon is the creator of Pique Tea and is by far my most favorite tea company in the world by some distance. I gift Pique Tea, I talk about it a lot, and I drink at least 3 cups a day of Pique Tea. So Simon started the company with genuine people around him on the ground. Here is Simon.
We really like to see everyone realize their true potential. And this is something that evolves and changes, but I have one-on-ones with every single person at the company. I mean, we're obviously like not a huge company, so it's possible to do that. But I take like tremendous pride and derive a lot of like joy from doing that, because we have young people, we have, more kind of senior people, and each one of them has something, something amazing about them, that's also kind of similar, right? That's shared. And it just makes me so proud, right? That we have this kind of company. Of course, it makes it hard to like, the screening process becomes hard because you're screening for something that's like, wow, like how do you find that, right? It's almost like serendipitous when you chance on these people. But it's amazing to have to work around people like that and to be surrounded by people like that are so genuine and care so much.
For context, Pique Tea has won multiple accolades, including being 3-time gold medal champion at Global Tea. But also, Simon has earned his undergraduate and master's degrees from Harvard and Stanford and is the youngest member of Harvard School of Public Health's Nutrition Roundtable. So he has amazing people around him, but how does one make a product that is good for the world, can heal people that buy it, and is profitable to pay its amazing people?
I have an analogy that I share with my team all the time, and is that the things that drive us are kind of our twin engines of growth are, on the one hand product excellence, and on the other hand content excellence. So if that's like the 2 jets of an airplane, the fuel is basically our cash flow, and it's the fuel that enables us to soar ever greater heights, right? And we want to soar to ever greater heights because we want to launch ever better products, have ever more impactful content that have a greater influence on people and a greater impact on people, right? And so that, that cash is really what facilitates us to be on this plane at all, right? Otherwise it would just never get off the ground. And that's kind of how I like to think about it. What's interesting is that when things kind of creep into, like investors, or, people on the team, salespeople, and they become very focused on like, money for the sake of money. That really drives me crazy. Almost to, I would say probably to a fault. If I cared a lot more about money, maybe we would have grown a lot faster and have much more revenue, right? But to me, like that detracts so much. And I'm not saying this in this kind of bullshit way. I don't care about money. Of course I care about money. Like I want to go on nice holidays to fancy places and like, be very comfortable and buy nice things. Like who doesn't want to do that? Like I absolutely love all those things. But when it's like, when the outcome becomes the money, then I feel completely drained and I feel very unfulfilled and I feel super frustrated actually. And again, that's not to say that money is not important. It is. And I guess I'm just lucky that there are people in the company that can keep a mind over the budget, can keep an eye over the sales figures and all that stuff. And obviously like I'm, very aggressive about how we grow also, but it's just one of those things that the money has to be serving something else in order for it to be meaningful. And so I'm glad that we have that.
From an article in the Huffington Post, author Sura writes, "What is healing exactly? Like trying to describe God or love, it's hard to talk about and better to have a personal experience of it. When you experience it, it feels deeply nurturing and peaceful. The basic definition of healing is the process of becoming whole. People use different words to describe healing, like presence, love, and consciousness. Healing is less about fixing yourself than it is the practice of letting go. It helps you release blocks, physical, emotional, and mental blocks and behaviors that keep you limited in your potential and true health. For example, you might suddenly realize that certain people in your life don't make sense anymore, or you may lose interest in certain foods or activities you used to enjoy. In healing, you often receive clarity and insight about your life path."
Simon, when you look back, what are the moments that are milestones in the way you made your decisions?
I think like the two most pivotal events of my life happened during meditation also. So this is like crazy. So like literally like a year after I came back from Jakarta, like within the next 12 months, every time I was meditating for like an hour a day, because it's like, what Qigong meditation is like going to the gym. It's you're able to, there's a technique, there's a methodology, you focus and you feel the benefits. So it's not like spiritual meditation where you're trying to reach enlightenment. It's very tangible, right? And you feel it. And I remember the first time, and this was right when I was about to start Pique, I got this voice that was like, do you want to be a healer or do you want to make money, make a shitload of money? And it was like, if you want to make money, it's easy. Like we just turn on the taps. And I was sitting there thinking, right, making a decision. And the minute that I started thinking, I felt shame that I had to make such a decision. I was like, and I already had like multiple health tragedies, 3 operations by then. And I was like, wow, how shameful is it that I actually have to think to consider whether I'm going to go heal and help people or just like make a ton of money. So I went away, thought about it, and it was like tearing me up kind of question. It wasn't like, I forgot about it that night. It was like, I actually talked to my friend. I was like, Steven, like, you won't believe what happened. Like, this voice. And he looked at me, he's like, Simon, look what you're doing. Like you're talking about starting a tea company. He's like, of course you want to be a healer. You just like, look at the career you've chosen, right? And you know what Hong Kong is like. Everyone's like completely obsessed with money. I had an MBA at the time. I'd spent 10 years in finance and a hedge fund. So to me, it was like not an obvious thing at all, right? So I went back into this meditative state and I asked the boys, and I was a little bit kind of like, this is like a trick, right? I was like, why did you force me to choose? Because I can do both, right? Like I'm starting a business and doing this tea stuff that's going to help people and is going to be a success. And the voice said, sometimes life is not about the answer, but about how you get there. And I was just like, holy shit, like my mind was completely blown apart, right? And I was like, I was like, where is this coming from, right? Like this external wisdom. I thought I was like given a gift by these aliens. So that was like the first thing. And ever since that moment, like everything was kind of like paved the way for all the decisions that we make at Pique, like the content that we publish, the products that we create, how we market it, how we treat our customers, like how we think about profits, everything.
Healers are everywhere, and healers are called to heal all the time. The problem is that we have a bias, the bias being that medicine comes in the shape of a pill. And if we have to be cured of anything, then it has to be done by the first world. And there has to be medical science behind it, I suppose. And I suppose the key here is to understand that there are different versions and different ways to heal. This is a report by South African ABC News about trying to demystify African herbs that have been used for millennia to heal people.
African cultural beliefs and the environment are closely connected and at times misunderstood.
As traditional healers, not in a name that you would use body parts to heal. We do not heal because that's definitely voodoo. It's witchcraft. Traditional healers use what God gave to us, what nature gave to us to heal.
It's important for people to go back to their healing methods, the ones that our forefathers, our ancestors have used, and they have used them effectively. So we say it's about time. Let's reclaim the land. Let's reclaim the heritage. In it is medicine.
Tourists welcome to the experience.
Be able to come here and see your culture, your heritage, and your medicine is absolutely wonderful. It's very powerful.
The tour also intends to demystify African traditional healing.
National parks is not about plants and animals only. It's about heritage, especially cultural heritage. Each and every national park has an element of cultural values, whereby people connect with the environment through those cultural values.
Similar tours will be rolled out to other 10 parks, national parks across the country. Bale Samweti, SABC News at Golden Gate near Kwakwa.
Our research led us down a path to meet Amanda Gabashi talking about being a healer.
Did you know that in 1978, the World Health Organization issued calls to member states for the inclusion of traditional medicine in primary healthcare systems? Did you also know that it was only 1981 in South Africa that parts of the practice of traditional healing were legal? And lastly, did you know that China has fewer people using traditional Chinese medicine in China than Africa does using African traditional medicine? In 1999, I began a journey into a world which is a parallel universe. That's all I can explain it as, when I began the process of Uktwasa. Now, Uktwasa is the process where someone who has the calling of Ubungoma, becoming a Sangoma, starts the journey with the teacher to actually get to the point where we are recognized as Izangoma, as I am. It's a lifelong process, beginning from before birth and continues right through your life as a Sangoma. For me, the journey was interesting because my background and my identity was one of Christianity. And also I grew up in a so-called colored environment in Natal. My mother, although Zulu, had always said to us that the reason she didn't marry a Zulu man is because Zulus had too many things. She was very wrong though, because she got hopelessly lost in her partner that she chose, my father. Because although born of a Zulu maiden and a white man, he was the most, and still is for me, the most traditional Zulu man I've known, partly because of his upbringing in rural KwaMaphumulo in KwaZulu-Natal.
You've got to check out the whole TEDx talk, but here's my point. Healing occurs in the most mysterious ways, and just because they are mysterious doesn't mean that we have to believe in an organized religion either. Sometimes we get caught in the black and white and prescription, medication versus traditional healing. And then, while I was thinking all this, Simon started to talk about to retail or not to retail.
Did I think that was important to success? that was like the single-minded thing I was focused on for years, right? Even before starting the business, it was like Whole Foods, that's where you build the brand. And then you scale into like, all the other national chains. Of course, man. Like, and our listings in Whole Foods just grew and grew and grew. And like the regions grew and all of that stuff grew. But, I knew going in that the business was shit. Like everyone knows that, working with Whole Foods is a shitty prospect and a shitty proposition. But so many entrepreneurs do it because like, they're managing their business for a sale, right? And so all of that unprofitability, all of that loss, all of that sweat and blood is like, it's going to be fueled by external funding and VCs and all this stuff. A lot of people willing to do that. Of course, the pain comes when you aren't able to sell, right? Like you spend, and by the way, like the vast majority of people do that, obviously. It's like, you basically sweat blood and tears and bullets. And then whatever X years later, you're fucked because, your company goes out of business because you built an unprofitable model, having shitty partners, right? That drive you into the ground and you maybe miss the timing or a window or something, right? For us, it was definitely without a doubt, a bold decision because it was, it's not unmeaningful, right? Like we're still in some retailers, amazing retail partners, by the way. Like there are many others in the US. Wegmans is an amazing one that we work with. And they were like, holy shit, I can't believe this happened to you. Let me actually help you and buy some of the inventory that Whole Foods has now rejected to help you out. Like that's the kind of people I want to do business with, right? So yeah, I mean, was it a jolt? Was it like, people on my team being like, holy shit, are you really going to do this? It was definitely like that. Even all the brand ambassadors that we had, they were very sad because they helped build that Whole Foods thing, right? But for me, it was simply the fact that like, I knew it was one of those kind of, those forks in the road, very much like, when I had the meditation and it was like, do you want to be a healer or make a ton of money? It's like, I couldn't live with myself to try to perpetuate and invest money, of the companies and energy of the teams and have people in my team and myself spending their waking hours and their life trying to work with a partner like that. There's just something very kind of corrupt about it, very polluted and dirty and like impure about it and not consistent with like why we, any of us doing what we're doing. Completely inconsistent.
When we come back, your roots, the symbiotic process of everything around us, and the importance of learning cultures.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Our aim with this audio documentary has always been to build a strong community of entrepreneurs and creatives to provide a space where they can use their voice to share their authenticity with the world. As a valued listener, your voice matters too. We love to hear your feedback and ideas, so don't be shy to let us know how we're doing in the ratings and comments. If you have a message for our production team or know someone who would be a perfect fit as a guest, you can find out more information on how to share your input at psychologyofontrepreneurship.com.
Hey, welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the business and people that bring Pique Tea to life in a way that I can consume toxin-free tea that is healing. Also, I have variety, but maybe I'll talk about that variety later. What I was fascinated about was their pu'er tea, because I love that pu'er tea, and there is a story how I get to enjoy my cup of tea. Well, there's a story from where the leaves come from. Simon?
And so, one of my dad's friends, who I didn't even know that well, and my dad didn't know that well, heard that I was in China, heard that I was interested in health foods, sent me a bunch of samples that were in like these plastic bags, no instructions, and was like, make it in water. And I did. And I was like, oh my God, the whole water turned black. And I didn't even dare drink it, frankly, because, I didn't know like who it was from, like who this guy was. And he was like, and then he was like, hey, you have to come to Yunnan. I was like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know what this product is. He's like, you have to come meet the founder, meet the farmer. And so I had nothing to do that weekend. I initially said no. And then the weekend came around and I was like, oh, I have no plans. Like, what should I do? And I was thinking, and there were no good options. So I was like, wait a minute, maybe I should go to Yunnan. And so I did. And I met the founder of the creator of this thing. And he was like a minority culture, indigenous, tribes person who was a tribesperson in the area that pu'er tea is grown and cultivated. And pu'er is the origin of tea in the world. The oldest tea tree there is like 3,200 years old. Everyone that gets a thank you email from us sees me with the tree. And so we now know that tea originated from there. And these tribes people grew up, like their whole culture and civilization is living amongst these trees, tending and gardening them, right? Amazing. And he took me he's like, you have to come to the tea farm. So we drove out 10 hours, right? Unknown to me, we took a 10-hour drive out into this kind of like in the middle of nowhere. And it's like a jungle. And I was like, oh, this is a tea farm? And they're like, yeah, the tea trees grow wild in this place. And so he's like taking a machete, hacking his way through the foliage to get to the tree. And he's like, Simon, do you see like the circle of life that's happening here? And I was like looking around, I was like, what circle of life? It's like a jungle, right? And he's like, no, all of these plants that we're hacking through, they're actually dying, decomposing, going into the soil. The trees absorb the soil. All the nutrients go into the leaves. We're taking the leaves. We're drinking the leaves. He's like, no other food source in the world is like this. You look at any farm, it's all cash crop. All the weeds, the herbs, everything has been killed off with chemicals. That's not the case here. And he's like, these trees are so old, nothing is competing with them for nutrients, right? In fact, the whole environment is symbiotic. Everything is symbiotic and coexists in harmony. And I was just like, oh my God, right? Like mind blown again. And then he's like, this thing that we sent you in the mail that dissolved, he's like, that's how my culture has been preparing this tea for like hundreds of years. We take the tea like they do in India, they just boil it for hours and hours and hours. And then they throw out the tea leaves and they keep boiling it till a resin is left behind. It's like this sticky paste, and then they scrape it up and they just eat it. Because, when they're going from one village to the next, like it's a 3-day hike, back in the day, and they just eat it. It keeps them strong. It keeps them energized. They can hike for hours. And, the sun, the rain, the wind, all of this stuff. And I was like, oh my God. And you can dissolve it in water too. And so that was the original inspiration. When I saw that, I was like, that is ingenious. I think the world would benefit from this. I want to bring this to the world. And we innovated upon that, right? So we removed the heat. We cold brew everything. Right? Then we dehydrated also with no heat by adding vacuum, like different pressure, all of that stuff, like filtration. And then you have this tea crystal, right? That is no bitterness, perfectly brewed, right? It's the perfect temperature, right? And the perfect time. And that's why we win like 3 gold medals for, Global Tea Championship, because of the flavor, right? And it's compared to loose leaf tea, other teas around the world. And we know that, just from the taste, like we got the active ingredients right because it tastes good. And of course, we do tons of analysis, tons of lab testing, and it's to convince us that this is like amazing, like everything is in the right balance. So that's the result of, that's what you're drinking in your cup.
Did you know tea was originally chewed rather than drank for medicinal purposes such as detoxification? According to folklore, the beverage was first discovered when some leaves from tea bushes blew into the water that servants were boiling to purify it for Emperor Shen Nong to drink. The leaves went unnoticed and the water was served to the emperor, who was also a herbalist. Upon drinking this accidental brew, he enjoyed it very much and the concept of drinking tea was born.
Let's get our education on when it comes to drinking tea, because it is not only about the consumption, it is about the time taken to consume and what happens with a cup of tea in your hand. I love a good tea party. But, Simon, what does the research tell us?
There's so much research done on tea, more than any other food in the world, because, it's not like it's something that I'm making up, right? It's the second most drank beverage in the world after water. So of course, there's a lot of research on it. It's also been drank longer than pretty much anything but water, right? I mean, it's like it's got a 3,500-year-old, history. It's probably predates wine, right? And so, yes, there's a crazy amount of research on it, and the health benefits are just like sweeping, far-ranging, right? And this is like very solid kind of, peer-reviewed journal, like longitudinal cohort studies, like, very reliable studies on the health benefits of tea. And yet very few people certainly in the US, but increasingly in the Western world, fewer and fewer people drink tea. You see it in the UK, I think maybe in Australia as well. And these are traditionally tea drinking places. And I think that the reason for that is because the convenience factor has overtaken the quality, completely overtaken it. And you talk to a lot of people, they're like, oh, I think tea is disgusting. Like, I hate tea. They're like, well, what tea did you drink last? And it's like, well, I went to like, some quick serve restaurant and they served it in this glass. Or when I stayed at the motel, there was a free tea bag. And of course, that's disgusting. That's like picking up a cigarette butt from the floor and like smoking it, right? It's gross, right? I mean, like, it's just like completely like, it's like there's a much higher quality, a much more elevated version of that, that people are not accessing because it's hugely, and it's not even a price thing, it's hugely complicated to brew tea properly. If you take pu'er tea from Yunnan, for example, like that stuff can be infused like, 10, 15 times. Who has time to infuse the same tea leaves 10, 15 times, or you're wasting it, right? But the thing is that in a lot of cultures like China, like India, like the Middle East, like people go around with their tea in a bottle. That's just, they leave the house, there's tea, they fill it up, and then they leave and they drink, and they keep adding water to that bottle the whole day. So they're mostly just drinking tea, right? And if you want to experience health benefits, that's how you got to do it. Harvard School of Public Health Nutrition Source website, which is, kind of like my highest benchmark for nutrition facts or nutrition, whatever, like, research. They say like, 3 or more cups a day is generally what's observed to produce any health benefits. That's a lot of tea for most people, especially in the US and many Western countries. 3 or more cups a day. Imagine brewing three tea bags a day or 3 things of loose leaf tea a day. It adds up. It's like half an hour or more of time, right? And so, unfortunately, I think that's tainted the whole experience. And what Pique is trying to do is help, level that, right? And I think the other thing that many people don't realize, which we try to share all the time, is that, green tea is not like the only tea that's good. It has a completely different set of health benefits than black tea does. So generally, green tea recognized for like, supporting healthy immune function, right? Because of the antioxidants and the catechins, the EGCG, all of that stuff. Of course, there are a whole number of other benefits. When that catechin gets converted into black tea, when the green tea converts into a black tea, it's kind of like a leaf falling from a tree, right? It just like oxidizes and ferments and turns from green to black. The black tea has the microbes and the oxygen has converted the catechins into a different set of active ingredients called theaflavins. It's actually the pigment of the tea. And in the East, black tea is recognized as being wonderful for, supporting digestion health and that sort of thing, supporting gut health, right? And so the 2 teas have completely different active ingredient profiles, different tastes as a result, and different health benefits as a result. And so we're constantly trying to educate people. And then that's just like tea leaves. There's a whole universe of infusions of, ginger and turmeric and like spices and all of this stuff. It just so happens that many, many, many plants are very, very effectively extracted using water. And that water is called tea. So I really encourage everyone to really be very open-minded. Of course, raise the quality of the tea they're drinking, but really embrace tea as being like, this water-based extraction of plants of all kinds, right?
How does it all feel, Simon? Do you even realize what you've made?
I think that I'm very lucky and blessed to be in a business where every, product that we sell, every box of product, where we know for a fact that like it's doing good for somebody, right? Like it's completely unambiguous. And that's, a lot of products aren't like that. A lot of services aren't like that. In fact, the vast majority are not. And I also feel very blessed that can actually be intertwined with a means of, living and having a lifestyle and creating wealth and building a business that's completely sustainable and also, potentially great, right? And so, the 2 things are completely compatible, can completely coexist. And I kind of wish that, more people realize that, right? And because those 2 things are completely intertwined and coexist, like I derive an almost unlimited amount of fulfillment and inspiration from what I do. And I can say that that's the case for every single person in my team. Like we attract people that want to feel fulfilled doing this stuff, right? And so if you look at our mission, which is to help everyone unlock the benefits of medicinal plants and unleash our collective potential, right? That unleashing collective potential has the concept of, the seed of compassion, of empathy, of caring for others, like embedded in it. It's actually like one of like complete service orientation, right? And so to have that as kind of like the guiding light, we're able to now say like, to my email team, I say every single email you guys write, It has to like positively transform somebody's health and lifestyle. That's the goal. It's not like creating junk content. It's not like trying to just purely sell product. Obviously, we write emails that sell product too, but like the intent of every single email, even if it's selling a product, it has to come with a piece of information that helps make that person's life better in a way that will actually move them to take action, that's transformative. And so that to me is just wonderful, right? And we also, if you keep extending it and building upon it, it's kind of like that gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving. Like internally, the way that I deal with other people in the team is I help each of them realize their own fulfillment and unlock their potential as well. And I make them committed to everyone else. So like Monday, our all hands meeting, everyone starts with gratitude for each other, right? And it's like a very normal thing to do. You praise, people say you praise your, whatever team member, but it's like, we look people in the eye and say, you have been XYZ. You have changed my life in these areas in the past week, and I'm so grateful to you. And it's just like developing this wonderful thing where it's like people are healed by like all the interactions, all the touch points, right? And so for me, it's like every word, every touch point, everything we say, every product that we sell has to have some healing quotient.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Coming up on the Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
It's so interesting, even presenting this as a question, solving the world's most meaningful problems, and I love it. And at the same time, it's there's the overwhelm of even trying to consolidate into having a meaningful conversation, because you can go down so many different rabbit holes.
Our problems that we consider our problems are actually probably just inconveniences, and if we're gonna solve the real problems of the world, we have to have global collaboration.
I think it's really important to my Black people to not make it everybody else's responsibility to put us on stage. I think that we need to raise our hands and put ourselves on the stage.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
I interviewed Simon Cheng because I just love Pique Tea. Pique Tea is a 3-time gold medal champion at Global Tea. Pique Teas are even triple toxin screened for pesticides, heavy metals, and toxic mold, which are commonly found in plants. Every Pique product is effective, pure, and accessible, which means zero prep required. And by the way, Simon Cheng is the founder and CEO. In his 20s, Simon went through a decade of health issues that left him with staples in both lungs and a screw in his jaw. Ouch. Celebrating his 30th birthday with a tube for delivering antibiotics directly into his heart valve. This is a journey of healing not only himself, but learning how to heal others, and now with Pique Tea. Simon has earned his undergraduate and master's degrees from Harvard and Stanford, and is the youngest member of the Harvard School of Public Health's Nutrition Roundtable. He is an amazing entrepreneur, a brilliant thinker, and a healer.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
This is a Must Amplify production. Special thanks to every guest expert that has appeared on the show. Editing, voiceovers, and sound design by Kaylee Bonnyman and Tiago Vega. Guest research by Jenna Elliott. Content by Corinne Castles. Project managed by the legend that is Kaylee Bonnyman. Produced and hosted by me, Ronsley Vaz. For more episodes and where to listen, go to mustamplify.com/POE.
Love the polished audio docuseries style of this podcast, The Psychology of Entrepreneurship? At We Are Podcast, you can learn how to create a similar style for your own show. This revolutionary virtual event assembles podcasters, entrepreneurs, and marketers in one spot, so you're able to learn from the masters. Head straight to wearepodcast.com to reserve your spot at our next event.